Federal agencies say 15 babies across a dozen states have been hospitalized due to a botulism outbreak. The FDA says the cases are linked to ByHeart's World Nutrition infant formula, the company now expanding its recall of the formula nationwide. ABC's Rhiannon Alley has more.
Botulism is a rare but serious illness caused by a toxin that can damage the body's nerves. Early symptoms in infants often include constipation, poor feeding, a weak cry, and a loss of head control.
Luckily, no deaths have been reported, but if you do have this formula in this recall, do not feed it to your baby. Just throw it away.
In California, officials in Santa Cruz County now asking for the public's help to locate a missing Utah woman who was visiting the area.
35-year-old Danielle Staley was last seen at a bonfire on November 6th, late in the evening on a beach in the community of Aptos. Her belongings were found on the beach, but she was gone. Detectives say they have information that Staley may be at risk and foul play might have been involved. She was last seen wearing a dark hoodie sweatshirt on the beach. Investigators are looking for surveillance video trying to figure out what happened to Staley. Alex Stone, ABC News.
A federal judge in New York deciding luxury real estate brokers Tal and Orrin Alexander and their brother Elon must face charges. They conspired for more than a decade to drug, sexually assault, and rape dozens of women. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. Ever wonder why Big Wireless wants you on an unlimited plan? They probably want you to cover the cost of those 20-somethings using all that data every month. But most people 50 and up like me only use 12 gigs or less. Don't get bamboozled by Big Wireless. Switch to Consumer Cellular. Our plans start at just $20, and we use the same towers as the big guys. Join the millions who choose something better, because if you're not using all that data, you're probably getting used.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
4:05 now in News Talk KBNU, and I'm Will Feelright with your local headline. Well, a 16-year-old Layton High School student dying earlier this week after being electrocuted and falling from a power pole. It's an accident that has deeply saddened the community and reopened wounds of a similar fatality that happened at that same location 18 years ago. Now, Layton High Principal Brock Jackman informed parents yesterday, stating that the school was deeply saddened by the death of the student and that the school had also deployed a district crisis response team to meet with staff and students. Now, friends and community members gathered all afternoon yesterday at the pole's base, adding new flowers and items to an already existing memorial. Now, residents expressed shock and grief over the repeated tragedy. Julia Busha, a 30-year resident who served on the city council, recalled the death of 15-year-old Scott Nye back in 2007 at that very same tower. Now, Busha urged Rocky Mountain Power, which has jurisdiction over the poles, to take this seriously and consider fencing the area to prevent further accidents. Now, police confirmed that the teen suffered severe burns and traumatic injuries from the estimated 60-foot fall. Now, so far, Rocky Mountain Power has not commented on the incident. And a bizarre story out of Nephi in central Utah, where a 38-year-old woman was arrested after allegedly moving into a house while the owner was on vacation and then threatening to kill the homeowner when they returned. Now, Vanessa Mirren was arrested on suspicion of second-degree felony burglary of a dwelling and a Class B misdemeanor threat of violence. The incident all occurred November 10th when the victim returned home to find the lights on and a BMW with Arizona license plates in the driveway. Now, the victim ran from the house after Mirren, who had gained entry through an unsecured in-law apartment, allegedly chased her out. Now, Mirren claimed that she owned the house, telling officers that she was sent there by a deceased formerly known celebrity. Now, police confirmed, though, through public records that the home did belong to the victim and found Mirren's clothing, food, and medication inside the house. Mirren was booked into the Juab County Jail and right now being held without bail. And it's Aggie basketball coming up tonight as the men host Weber State in the Spectrum. Head coach Jared Calhoun earlier this week talking about this Wildcat team.
Yeah, I mean, I think every team we're going to play from year to year here on out in college basketball will be different. I think they'll stick with some of their same concepts. But, you know, Coach Duff's been there a long time. He was a long-time assistant going into year 4 as a head coach. He's got a great system. I think they do a really good job of getting the ball side to side and getting advantages with their ball movement. But, yeah, I think they have 4 returning players that have had some equity build up over there at Weber State, but they're a really good team. I'm not sure what the coaches in that conference were thinking, picking them second to last. That's not what I see on film. I think they're really good.
Now we'll hear more from Coach Calhoun coming up tonight with our pregame show beginning at 6 o'clock as J.D. Walker and Stockton Jukes will be counting down to tip-off. Then, of course, immediately following the game, it's our post-game and Aggie call here on KVNU. Well, we've had a few clouds, and that's kept temperatures cooler today as we've been in the mid to high 50s. Now tonight we'll drop into the mid-30s with clouds starting to clear up overnight, and that'll leave us with sunny skies tomorrow. Temperatures Thursday going to be right around the mid to low 60s. Then we'll start to see a chance of some rain coming in on Friday. And it looks like, though, the storm's still supposed to clear out, and Saturday and Sunday now not looking too bad with temperatures right around the mid-50s. And weather this hour brought to you by Logan Extermination. Don't risk hanging those Christmas lights this year on your own. Get new permanent lights installed by Logan Extermination. Call them today at 752-8450. And I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News headlines.
Roof Rescue is your local roofing specialist, dedicated to keeping your home safe and dry no matter the weather. Their team of experienced roofers is here to serve you, providing top-quality service at affordable prices. From minor repairs to complete roof replacements, they've got you covered. Remember, your roof is your first line of defense in protecting your family from the elements. So don't wait until the next storm to discover your roof problems. Call Roof Rescue today at 435-999-4268. They're your trusted local roofing experts, here to keep your home safe and dry. Roof Rescue, celebrating 10 years of providing watertight peace of mind.
The latest news 24/7. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Hey Aggie fans, D&D Advertising has the new 2025-26 basketball schedules ready for pickup at these fine businesses: Gerber Landscapes, H&S Well Service, Hanson & Sons LLC, Peak Windows, Impact Insulation, The Jump Zone, Tree Barbers LLC, H.H. Mobile Repair, Four Seasons Windows, Bear Well Drilling, Recovery Cafe, KBRO's Concrete and Floorwork, Mountain View Machine and Welding Incorporated, Adams Wealth Advisors, Sunshine Terrace Foundation Assisted Living, Apex Painting LLC, Protective Insurance Agency, Birch Creek Assisted Living, and Leisure Pool and Spa. D&D Advertising Enterprises is not licensed, affiliated with, or endorsed by any university, sports institution, or program unless specifically stated in writing. No proceeds from any of the funds collected for your ad will be given to any educational institution or sports team. We are not responsible for any schedule changes made after printing.
KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency. So we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Wednesday, November 12th. I'm Jason Williams. 50 degrees here at the Radio Ranch at 4:11 in the afternoon. Appreciate everyone tuning in. A legislative update of sorts coming up in hour 2 of today's show. We have some hints at some of the big bills that have been opened as bill files, even those that don't have exact language yet. Bill files will give you an idea of what it is the sponsoring lawmaker is going after in the bill. So a few of those, actually a whole slew of those released today. Legislative session doesn't kick off until the third week in January, but it does look like it's going to be a big session. One of the things that's happening right now with the Utah legislature is I don't know if you can really call it even a budget debate. But it is a big budget decision that they're facing, and that stems from a lot of pandemic money. A couple of different pandemic bills passed by the federal government that put money towards states first as an emergency response in the midst of the pandemic. After that, there was a big package of bill, the first coming in the Trump administration. After that, there was a second pandemic response bill that sent a lot of money to states as well. That was meant to be a kind of an economic dig-out bill. Both bills were actually pretty successful at achieving their stated goals, and life moved on, right? The pandemic eventually wound down, and at least, in the panic of the 2020 and 2021 years, seeing, horrible footage of those refrigerator trucks behind hospitals in New York City is the one that I'll always remember, just full of bodies. And of course, as the virus kept, variations of the virus kept popping up, it kept mutating. It got less and less deadly. Vaccines come out, and that helps, get people to the point where so many fewer people are going to the hospital. And eventually, in the public policy world, it becomes kind of not something we're really talking about anymore. And unfortunately, that means that the funding that was coming through those rescue bills, as they were often called, was also something that local lawmakers here in Utah and other states as well weren't talking about anymore. And so one of the big issues coming up in this legislative session is that money is gone now. If not gone, it's earmarked for other things. In previous legislative cycles, they've put the money aside for this or for that. So if it's not spent, it's already on paper used for a specific purpose. And that has left the state in a bit of a crunch. Now, in Utah, this is one of the things that you can be most proud of, I think. There are a lot of reasons to watch the legislature, especially the last 24 hours. Some of the lawmakers just losing their minds over this judicial ruling on redistricting. And you watch that stuff and you kind of think, oh, my goodness, who are we sending there? They seem very emotional sometimes. But one of the things that you can be proud of with the legislature is that, and this ties back into something I say on the show all the time, one of the things I like most about the legislature is it's slow and clunky. In fact, the only time the legislature really gets itself into trouble or does something that we should all be extremely unhappy with is when they rush. When they're just doing business as usual, it's slow, it's clunky, it can take years for something to get done. And that is a feature, not a bug, of the legislature. And that does apply as well to budget and planning. They have a tendency to plan out quite a bit. They'll never put it this way, but one thing they realize in Utah is that in order to keep taxes low relative to other states, in order to continue to position themselves the way they campaign as a state that is constantly looking for ways to reduce what they're taking, from your paycheck or your wallet in fees and taxes, they realize that often means that the state is functioning, in a careful balance between spending and revenue collection. Now, they don't have say over a lot of things like the state of the national economy, and the state has, of course, its own economy that's really healthy right now. But, as we've seen before, if the national economy goes a certain direction, we eventually go there as well, even if that's down in growth and jobs. And there's some concern over that. So heading into this legislative session, lawmakers, from what I'm seeing and hearing, I've only spoken with about 4 lawmakers about this, and they've all hinted that one of the issues they're really going to be looking at, similar to what we're seeing from a lot of cities here in Cache Valley, they're not calling it this, but something along the lines of a long-term master plan for spending and revenue. Realizing that the economy has been great for several years now. The Utah's economy has been growing since really slow growth back then, but it was growing in the Obama years, and it's kind of just kept growing. We did, of course, see a temporary big slump during the pandemic. So did everyone else. That rebound came quickly afterwards, and it's just kept growing since through 3 presidents now. So that's something that is great, but at the same time, it does have state economists telling lawmakers, you know that this ends eventually. And we're not saying when. They do hint at some signs they're seeing in some cooling of the economy, but that can also be healthy, they said to lawmakers during the interim meeting last month. And but they said, this eventually the bubble bursts. And with that in mind, we really should be planning for that bubble bursting. And what lawmakers have said that. And so during this legislative session, what you're going to see is a lot of, boring conversations in committee meetings and more. But what you're really seeing is a lot of that kind of long-term planning. It's been a while since the state really put together a spending master plan. Again, my words, not theirs. They call it something else in legislative speak. But that's basically what we're going to be seeing, is lawmakers working towards saying, okay, where's the economy of the state headed? Where do we want it to head? How does this sync up with the work funded by the legislature, funded by taxpayers through the legislature, I should say, of the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, trying to draw businesses in, trying to help create business districts in localities all around the state? How does that picture look? But also, if the economy nationally starts to slow, how are we going to be impacted by energy prices? We've still got a lot of infrastructure needs that are going to take a lot of money. Utah has to build up. We mostly talk about housing when we talk about all the growth that's projected for the state. But the legislature is going to be looking at that, of course. But they're also going to be looking at increased infrastructure demand. What does this mean for road funding? What does this mean for our highways? What does it mean for the overall water and electrical grid? And trying to project out 10 years on the potential cost growth, contrasting that with projections for revenue. As the population grows, so do the opportunities to collect revenue. And just basically taking a look at it and seeing if things balance out long term. So this is going to be really interesting to see, because as this plays out during the legislative session, and again, this will mostly be in committee hearings. There won't be a lot of floor debates on specific bills around this, other than the original bill to start the process. But in committee hearings, before that bill is unveiled, you're going to hear a lot of discussion about where we're at, what the projections say about where we're going. And again, all of this is to say things have been pretty great, but we've been burning through a lot of federal money to make a lot of advances when it comes to our infrastructure, when it comes to our general, upkeep of the state and things like that. And that money's gone. And how much can the state afford to sustain that? How much of that can they afford to sustain? And building a priorities list is going to be a really interesting conversation. But a lot of guesses that this is what they were going to do in the legislative session, but it's official now. 2 bill files have been opened by 2 of the known budget gurus in the legislative body, one in the House, one in the Senate. And both of those bill files are basically going to create a study of sorts, but instead of their traditional study where they put together a task force of people appointed by the legislature, the governor, et cetera, they're actually going to put this together made up of themselves. And then they'll begin their work throughout the year. But a lot of the discussion is going to play out to figure out where we're at as a starting point during the legislative session. So something to keep an eye on. You don't have to be an economics nerd or a political nerd to enjoy this. It's actually going to be a discussion about the needs of the state in a more frank way than usually the 24-hour news cycle and headlines allow, and what it means to be growing as fast as we're growing. Now, the growth has slowed a little bit right now, birth rate-wise, but we still have issues of internal growth. Again, Cache Valley, for example, projected to grow about 60% in the next 30 years from where we're at already, and it's already pretty crowded out there. So just Cache Valley as an example, That means there's going to need to be a lot of infrastructure building, a lot of road maintenance, a lot of new roads, maybe even expanded roads, maybe even money put towards alternate forms of transportation, recognizing you can only add so many lanes. All of that is going to cost money. Very few cities or even counties have the money right now to meet the need. That's a known. So the state is going to have to work on that, and they want to be able to plan 10 years out. So some really cool stuff. Check it out. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. Again, official 2 bill files open that will start this process, and this is going to be one of the more wonky legislative sessions. I'm sure we'll still have a handful of bills that get national headlines and that are based on some national political movement or bandwagon. We always get those. But the meat of the budget discussion is going to be 10-year long-term planning, a master plan for the state budget of sorts. And it's going to be really illuminating as they collect information themselves in a public way. So link to this on our Facebook page. And, of course, video and audio of all of these committee hearings when they get underway in the third week of January will be available at le.utah.gov. So somewhat related to the legislature in that they've recently changed some of the rules. We just dealt with this in the election. Ballots here in Utah, no longer a deadline of a postmark date, but now a deadline of must be received, must be in the hands of election workers by polls close on Election Day, 8 p.m. It caused some confusion here in Utah. Lawmakers are talking about undoing it and putting it back to a hard deadline of postmarked by this date. We'll see if that happens in the legislative session. But this is actually an issue that the United States Supreme Court is going to be taking up. A question of whether county clerks anywhere in the country can or should or shouldn't, those are the 3 options of the Supreme Court's ruling at the end of this, accept ballots that come in weeks later if the postmark is the correct date. And if not, what are some of the ramifications of that? The National Conference of State Legislatures has a great rundown of what each state has been doing independently, but also what this big debate coming up in this Supreme Court case as they hear it in a few weeks might mean for even states like Utah. We'll talk about it right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
This is Jordan with Primrose Home Care and Hospice. When it comes to home care, it's important for you to know you do have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of home care services, remember Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient, not the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Call for a free home safety evaluation, 787-1369, and visit primrosecare.com. Primrose Home Care and Hospice. We're your home team.
Everyone has an estate, but do you have an estate plan? This is Jace Allen, Northern Utah's estate planning attorney. At Allen Law Office, wills and trusts are what we do. If you've been putting it off, now is the time to get it done. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your loved ones, protect your legacy, protect your assets. Start today at cashlegal.com or just search Allen Law Office. Wills and trusts are what we do. Allen Law Office.
Hi, this is Chad Norton at The Lawn Doctor. Just over a year ago, we lost a great man who happened to be my dad, who was an integral part of our business and worked for us for 8+ years. Stan had a passion for taking care of the hungry and those in need. So as we get ready for this holiday season, in his honor, we have started a campaign called Give a Can for Stan to benefit the local food pantry. Here are the ways you can donate. If you're a Lawn Doctor customer, we'll pick it up on your final service. Or if you see a Lawn Doctor van, please feel free to hand it to the technician. You can also drop it off at our offices here in Logan, or go to the website giveacanforstan.org. Thanks for participating in Give a Can for Stan.
Insuring your business can be frustrating. If you are confused about coverages, your rates are increasing, or you can't get a hold of your agent, it's time for a change. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. We do return your calls because we work for you. We believe that protecting your business should be affordable and hassle-free. As an independent agency, we have access to multiple carriers like Auto Owners Insurance and will give you options. Call us today, 435-752-0101.
Thursday edition, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. The government It should be back open after the longest shutdown of all time. We will break down the absolute latest there, as well as whether you can now get on a plane and be able to travel without being concerned. Plus, Buck.
Uncle Bill will be with us. It's exciting. Join us on Clay and Buck.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
The United States Supreme Court will be deciding whether states can count mail-in ballots postmarked by Election Day but received later. Now, right now, Utah is kind of out of this one, considering that lawmakers in the legislative session earlier this year changed the rules to make it more confusing for voters, and that instead of a set postmarked by date, now the ballots, your ballots in a primary or the general election every year need to be received by election workers by polls close 8 p.m. on Election Day, on Tuesday, Election Day. So previous to this, of course, Utah, like a lot of other states, and even places like Guam and Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, have said if it's postmarked by a certain date but received days later, the county clerks can still process it and count it. That is the case in the majority of states right now, by the way, who have absentee or mail-in ballots. And Utah and 4 other states are the only that now say, you know, the postmark date doesn't count. It has to be received by Election Day at 8 p.m., leaving it up to voters to do the calculation there. I don't like it because I think for voters it's easier. I mean, that's not hard to calculate, but why make voters guess? You know, there's a lot of people were asking this session, what if I mail my ballot on Saturday? Usually that means it will be received by election workers, you know, well before Tuesday at 8 p.m., but sometimes not. Sometimes a load of mail ends up going to Salt Lake and getting postmarked, but then sitting in a distribution center for another 12 hours. And what if it doesn't arrive until, you know, Wednesday morning? But it's postmarked, you know, Saturday before. Common sense says the postmark deadline is just the smarter way to go about it. And also the whole problem they're trying to solve here is to me kind of silly, which is there's this push to have elections decided 100% on Election Day. And I don't get why. Rarely do those late coming overseas, for example, ballots, military ballots, change the outcome. Now, they can, especially in municipal races. We had one municipal race here in Utah come down to 6 votes and is currently in a recount, not here in Cache Valley, but still. So I get it. You know, there are times when, you know, when you could have ballots coming in for a week after Election Day, it's going to be a while before the candidates know who won or before voters know who won. But we'll live. Everybody will be fine. I think it's more important to say we should encourage everyone to cast a ballot and to get to, and for those ballots to be counted correctly. And a set postmark deadline is far easier for people to, you know, kind of adhere to rather than having to guess when you need to mail your ballot in order for it to get there in time. Big solution to this, of course, as I said during the election, just use the drop boxes. They're collected every few hours on Election Day, and they're collected at least twice daily on the early voting period before Election Day. So that's the best way to make sure your ballot gets there in time, is to just put it in a drop box, and they're at every city hall in the valley. But for those who are maybe overseas or maybe are going to be traveling and hadn't voted yet, a clear deadline makes more sense to me. But not because of Utah. This has actually been challenged by the Republican National Committee. The case is Watson v. Republican National Committee, and it stems from a Mississippi law that permits election officials to receive and count mail-in ballots postmarked on or before Election Day and received within 5 to 7 business days later, accounting for, you know, mail mishaps. Now, this did cause some issues in a different way here in Utah before. In the previous election cycle 2 years ago, there was, or last year, sorry, But in the primary, in the earlier part of the year, there were some ballots that were people signed affidavits to, which is basically you saying, I swear under the threat of penalty of law that I'm telling the truth here, because there's nothing else they can do to prove it. But they signed affidavits. Now, one person actually did have video evidence, courtesy of the county clerk, that they'd mailed their ballot on time, or courtesy of a nearby convenience store that they'd mailed their ballot on time. What happened? This was in southern Utah. About 450 voters in Washington County mailed their ballots in time. They put them in the mail well enough ahead of the election that they should have been postmarked by Monday, which was still the rule that year here in Utah. Well, the ballots went to Las Vegas and then sat there for an additional 12 hours and weren't postmarked until 12:40 a.m. on Election Day. Now, they were delivered to the county clerk that same day, so they were received in time, but they weren't postmarked correctly. They should have been postmarked when they arrived earlier on Monday before Election Day. They weren't. So the reason I bring all this up is there are pros and cons of both ways of doing this. But in this specific case, the RNC, Republican National Committee, is challenging the law in Mississippi that says officials can count ballots as long as they're postmarked before Election Day and received within 5 to 7 days. Mississippi and 16 other states, plus Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and Washington, D.C., do it this way. And the argument is that first in a federal district court, the federal district court ruled in favor of the state, saying that Congress established a single national election day to prevent voter burden of multiple election days and avoid influence, and that the states have the right to set their election rules. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed that district court and held that Congress established Tuesday after the first Monday in November as Election Day and that all ballots must be cast and received that day. Mississippi, the state appealed the Fifth Circuit Court's decision, and now the Supreme Court has said they will take it up. The state of Mississippi, a Republican state, is arguing that a ruling against the state will have a, quote, destabilizing national effect because many states would be invalidated. The state said that once voters mark and submit their ballot, the election has occurred, even if the election officials do not receive the ballots by Election Day, which is a pretty decent argument. 19 states, not including Utah, surprisingly, even though we probably should have signed on, filed amicus briefs in support of Mississippi, arguing that the Supreme Court should not take this power away from states, even states who don't even have a lot of mail-in voting outside of absentee ballots for military or missionaries or anyone else. And even they signed on and said, don't take this power away from the states. And the supporting briefs argued that Election Day statutes passed 150 years ago intentionally contain no clear preemption of state law and thus permit states the flexibility to make election policy. Why Utah will care about this, depending on the Supreme Court rules, it could take away the power of the state of Utah to set election rules as well if the Supreme Court decides that, or sides with the RNC in this case. They announced today they've agreed to take up the case. Oral argument in the case has not been set yet, so no date on this yet, but it will be in the next session of the Supreme Court, and so we'll likely know on this before the end of June of next year. Not in enough time to change the election rules here in Utah if need be, so keep an eye on this one. It could get a little messy. We'll be back after these headlines with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. Utah State University's Air Force ROTC program once again honored veterans with their annual POW MIA March. It was a solemn 24-hour vigil that began yesterday afternoon and continued up until this afternoon. Now, USU student Tyler Hogan, whose uncle served in the military, was impressed with the solemn event that was taking place in the center of the quad on campus.
I'm very appreciative of our veterans and everything they do for us and keeping us safe out here wherever, there's a lot going on in the world, and I'm just very lucky that they're there to protect us no matter what.
Now, the decades-long tradition featured cadets from USU's AFROTC Detachment 860 performing a synchronized continuous march in the center of the quad. Now, throughout the ceremony, the two cadets would alternate in shifts and act as an honor guard, marching around a display that had featured the U.S., Utah State, and the POW flags. Now, USU student Lily Olson was impressed with the cadets' service, reminding others about those who have served our country.
I think it really just shows how important people find it, like the fact that they're willing to do such a long march or trade off every hour starting at midnight. I think it's really cool.
Now, onlookers and members of the campus community were invited to participate by placing miniature American flags in the ground near the memorial. Well, a contentious struggle over public access is shaping up in the aggravated murder trial of Tyler James Robinson, the 22-year-old who is accused of assassinating conservative activist Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University in September. Now, attorneys representing the news media have filed a request demanding advance notice of any attempts by the defense or prosecution to seal or close court proceedings. Now, media attorneys have argued that transparency is vital to ensure a fair trial and prevent what they call a vacuum of possible conspiracy, especially considering the high-profile case where the state is seeking the death penalty. Now, criminal defense attorney Nathan Evershed described the dynamic as the parties versus the press, emphasizing the constitutional right to a public trial. Now, Robinson's defense team has responded by calling the media's request overly broad and burdensome. They assert that some hearings and documents must be kept private to ensure Robinson receives a fair trial in front of an impartial jury. And a woman is facing felony kidnapping charges after allegedly trying to repeatedly take an infant boy from his grandmother in Salt Lake City. Kylie Burnham, a 36-year-old, was charged Saturday with attempted child kidnapping, a first-degree felony, along with assault, a Class B misdemeanor. Now, according to police, the incident occurred last week when the grandmother was pushing her infant grandson in a stroller. Now, according to court documents, Burnham began yelling, accusing the grandmother of taking the baby and then forcibly trying to grab the baby in the carriage. Now, the grandmother was able to use her body to shield the infant. A bystander intervened and moved the grandmother and baby to a secure location, but Burnham allegedly followed and again tried to take the child, throwing a soda in the witness's face when he refused. Now, police have requested Burnham be held without bail, citing not only the danger due to the attempted kidnapping allegations, but also reports are that the suspect has an extensive criminal history that includes pending drug charges. Well, we'll still see some clouds through the rest of the afternoon and overnight tonight as temperatures going to drop into the mid-30s this evening. Tomorrow looks like it's going to be a beautiful day with sunny skies, temperatures around the mid-60s, then a chance of showers coming in on Friday. Temperatures by the weekend expected to be in the mid-50s. And weather this hour brought to you by Cardall's Insulation. They can help you take care of the temperatures in your home. If you're finding your furnace running more often, may not be the furnace. Check the insulation. They can take care of your home, garage, attic, anywhere. It's Cardall's Insulation, 755-5012. And I'm Will Theorite with your KVNU local headlines.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. A final vote taking place tonight in the House on the Senate-passed funding bill to end the government shutdown. That measure will fund the government until the end of January, but does not include extending subsidies for health care premiums. ABC's Selena Wang has more on the vote.
But even if Republicans have everybody present, they can only afford to lose 2 votes. We are expecting most Democrats to vote no, considering the anger and frustration over the fact that after this weeks-long fight, they are not getting their key demand, which is an extension of those Obamacare subsidies. But look, you heard what Speaker Johnson said. President Trump has also been very optimistic that this is going to get across the finish line once it passes the House. It then goes to the president's desk for his signature, and all of that could happen within the span of tonight.
The cold blast continuing for a section of the Midwest and Northeast, and freeze alerts dipping as far south as Florida tonight. No winning ticket last night in the Mega Millions. It's now up to $960.
At Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology, your hearing is our priority. For over 15 years, we've built trust by delivering expert care, personalized service, and real value you can count on. Our patients know they're more than just a number. They're family. We offer the latest in hearing aid technology, discreet, comfortable, and designed to fit your lifestyle. Experience the difference that true care and cutting-edge solutions can make. Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology, where trust, service, and better hearing come together.
Bringing Wall Street to Main Street. From your local experts in downtown Logan,
This is the Adams Wealth Advisors Market Report.
Hi, this is Doug with Adams Wealth Advisors. Stocks are mostly flat as markets waited for new catalysts. The Dow was the only major mover, rising 327 points to 48,255. The Nasdaq slipped 0.26% to 23,406, while the S&P 500 inched up 0.06% to 6,851. Sector performance also showed a mixed picture, with nearly half of the sectors moving up and the other half moving down, without a clear rotation towards safety or risk assets. Healthcare led with 1.42% gain and energy lagged, falling 1.4%. Most of the Magnificent Seven declined except Nvidia and Microsoft. AMD jumped 9% after announcing a new deal with IBM. Bonds rallied as a 5-year Treasury yield fell 4 basis points to 3.67%, and the 10-year dropped 4.5 basis points to 4.065%. Economic and political news was quiet. The House is expected to vote on ending the record-long shutdown, which would allow economic data releases to resume. The government also plans to roll back airport flight reductions once safety data permits. October's jobs and inflation reports won't be released, leaving some uncertainty about current conditions. We will continue to report on broader economic developments as they unfold.
That's your update from Adams Wealth Advisors, guiding your financial future one day at a time. For personalized help planning yours, reach out to us at 435-752-1702. See you soon, Cache Valley. Advisory services offered through Adams Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. For important disclosures and more information, visit adamswealthadvisors.com.
Join us all month long for the Season of Giving sales event at Murdoch Volkswagen. It's a time for us to say thank you, the Murdoch way, by giving back to the community that has given us so much. This month, receive the gift of up to $6,500 off remaining 2025 Atlas models or up to $3,500 off all remaining Tiguan models. When you walk through our doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Volkswagen in Logan or online at murdochvw.com.
Call 888-391-6083 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 11/30/25.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. This is, I've been following this one for a while now because, one, it's kind of interesting. Just, just the content itself is kind of interesting. But I've also been following this because I'm curious about how people react and also how the influence that social media has that sometimes we're not all aware of. So there's this viral TikToker. That's a bad way to say it. Makes it sound like this TikToker has some kind of disease. This TikToker whose project is a good way to describe it has gone viral. Her name is I think you would pronounce it Nicolai Monroe. And she is her background from what's been reported is she's an Army brat. She describes herself, or excuse me, an Army veteran, former Army brat turned Army veteran. She lives in Kentucky, and she said herself in an interview with the Washington Post that she started this project just because she was curious. She was frustrated, actually, because a neighbor of hers had gone to a evangelical megachurch in Kentucky for help, and had been ignored, and so Nicolai says she decided she wanted to see if this was a norm. Now, what she does, people have called it unethical. She's very open about it. To the point where at this point, if anyone answers and falls for her ploy, it's kind of on them. But at first, she was basically tricking people. But she does not have a 2-month-old daughter. She has a recording of a baby crying in the background. And what she started doing is she started calling these mega churches. And for those who don't really know, I don't know if there's an exact definition of mega church, but it's meant to refer to these large evangelical tent revival style. These are the mega churches that have big events with fireworks and people on motorcycles jumping over the crowd. And at a certain point, you watch it and think, is this a church or a circus? But it gets people there. It gets people excited. And they're huge. And they're also huge money. Over the years, we've seen many a head of a mega church go down for some kind of financial corruption or personal bad choices. And it creates a bit of a reputation, if you will, that maybe isn't fair. But maybe is. So who knows? I don't live in the area where these mega churches are most popular, so we'll see. But anyway, what she would do is she would call these religious organizations and she would record the conversation as a TikTok. So you can see her and you can hear them, and then she'd play this background track of a child softly crying in the background. And what she'd ask for is help with baby formula. And what she has shown in about 6 months or so of doing this is that the larger and the more well-moneyed the organization, the religious organization, the more likely they are to turn her down, to decline her request for help with baby formula. The smaller, and so she reports that like black Protestant churches in Alabama, even some mosques and super small churches have jumped to offer me assistance, she said. And then she's told them, okay, I don't actually need baby formula. This was a test and you passed. They thank her and then she hangs up. It's been really interesting to watch this. I want to say first that this is a horrible way to do the research because when she's not very transparent about who she's calling. And so you call up and get a receptionist for a mega church. There's one example of this. She actually calls up and gets a receptionist for a mega church in Kentucky who says, let me put you on hold. And then it comes back and says, I'm going to transfer you to someone who can help. And then she's transferred to a voicemail that says, I'm sorry, we can't help you right now, and it hangs up on her. Now, that could be an accident. That could be someone not properly trained. But I think it's worth pointing out that you might be getting someone who has no idea how to help, and so they just kind of brush you off. And what usually happens is they tell her about local resources, like a local food pantry or some other organization there to help young mothers with newborns. Some of them actually just say, no, we can't help you, and hang up. The other problem I have with this is that what she's doing is rhetorically effective. This is meant to tug at the heartstrings, right? Who wouldn't help a young mother with a baby concerned about having food for the child, right? So she's doing it right that way if you want to do a social experiment. But we can all agree no mother should be forced to have to be in this situation. We should intervention and help should be there before this. But I get what she's saying too. Your religious organization is oftentimes the first place someone's going to turn. But I got looking into this, and what I found is that it's created kind of a movement that I like. So I'm not really a huge fan of her tactics and how she's going about this. But what she's doing is she's brought, so all of these religious organizations all around the world have come forward in response to this viral project that she's created. They've come forward and said, you won't get this response from us. We'll help you. And in fact, some have started saying, look, young mothers, concerned about baby formula. One example given, this is a two-parent household, both parents employed, the mother part-time, the father full-time, and it still wasn't enough because of housing costs to meet their need. And there was a church who watched her video on TikTok and said, we're not even in the same state. We'll help. And other churches have stepped up and said, we're increasing our food bank drives and donations to respond to this. So in the end, she's kind of done a good thing, an effective thing. even if she's done it through kind of a sneaky way. It's been a really interesting thing to watch. And as she asks for formula in these videos, there are certain. It is surprising, admittedly, to see some of these mega churches have millions and millions of dollars rolling through every month, and it has been surprising to see some of these evangelical organizations that are basically gigantic businesses just kind of brush her off. What she's trying to do is raise a point about, what religion is supposed to be about, what we're supposed to learn as Christians, she says, and how we're supposed to treat each other as Christians. And I'm finding that these large, well-moneyed megachurches in the southeastern part of the country are not seeming to learn that lesson, she says in one video. One researcher, though, at the University of Alabama says, we've actually studied this academically. We've gone through and looked at not just surveying in a TikTok, but looking at, actual numbers. And what you'll find is, despite this young woman's experience on TikTok, the amount of money that most churches, even large ones, but especially smaller ones, that's an interesting part of this, are donating through their own charitable efforts directly, but also to local food banks, to local young family associations, and more, probably more than offsets the negative experience she has with these single calls. Not in all cases, but either way, it's a good wake-up moment. But the videos will make you sad when you first see them. Your first reaction is, how can they just brush this person off? They don't know she's faking it, right? But then as you start to see, as you work through, it's almost an issue of they're just not used to getting calls like that, and they don't know what to do with them. It's an interesting thing to see, but check it out. I've linked to the Culture Report study on this, the Culture Study Report on this. Would your organization give someone baby formula? Now, they're taking it in a different direction. They're actually saying, what if someone like this calls a business one day? Would the business help? Interesting question. Check it out. I've linked to it on our Facebook page, and a listener chiming in here say, what this really teaches us is that young people on TikTok are bored. Yeah, fair enough. Obviously, she's got some free time to do this, but it is creating quite a discussion. So I've linked to the Culture Study article on this on our Facebook page if you'd like to read it, with more background and more comments from others responding to her viral project as well. And we'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after this.
The Top of Utah Snowmobile Association invites you to Snow Friday, the club's opening social, Friday, November 21st at the Cache County Fairgrounds Event Center. Doors open at 5, dinner is at 6, and one meal is included with your membership. Participate and help the Top of Utah Snowmobile Association raise funds and continue the great events and preservation projects they have scheduled for this year. Join the Top of Utah Snowmobile Association. Friday, November 21st, Cache County Fairgrounds Event Center. Find the Top of Utah Snowmobile Association on Facebook or visit topofutahsnowmobile.com.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru for Morris Columbus Travel and Regent Cruises. Dreaming of a luxury escape? Regent Cruises offers all-inclusive voyages around the world. Indulge in the ultimate cruise experience with gourmet dining, spacious suites, and exclusive shore excursions. Call Morris Columbus Travel today.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
We're here with Chuck, founder of Dollar Loan Center. You always tell me it's worth the drive. What do you mean by that?
We charge so much less than payday or title lenders, and unlike banks, we actually lend money. Our locations are really nice, Craig. No bulletproof glass, plastic furniture joints. They're like the banks used to be. Clean, fun, great tunes on, and real live staff who love to help. And if you don't want to stop in, you can complete your whole application on your couch via your fancy smartphone. but we sure would like to meet you in person and tell you all about Dollar Loan Center and how we can help you get more money for less money.
DLC lends up to $5,000 in minutes, and you can get your cash in person at one of our 70 locations, on our website, don'tbebroke.com, or even over the phone with one of our helpful, real staff members. You're gonna love Dollar Loan Center.
Licensed by the Utah Department of Financial Institutions. Subject to approval. Limitations may apply. See website for details.
Aggies, the USU Campus Store's annual holiday event is this Wednesday, November 12th from 7:30 in the morning to 7 p.m. Be one of the first 100 shoppers to make a purchase and get a free Utah State ornament. Save 25% on almost everything, including Columbia, Champion, and HydroChuck. Plus, select Nike styles are 50% off. The USU Campus Store has great holiday gifts for everyone on your list, and when you spend $100 or more, get a free 2025 collectible holiday bear. Don't miss the 15th annual holiday event this Wednesday at USU Campus Store or online at usucampusstore.com.
Coming up in hour 2 of today's show, perfect timing. We've talked a lot about ways you can get out and help families in need through the Cash Food Pantry, through Little Lambs Foundation, and more. We're going to be discussing the same thing in a way in hour 2 as part of our monthly spotlight on the Logan School District. That is going to give us an opportunity to talk about family resources within the district and within specific schools that, yes, you can be a part of, but we'll also talk about how they help and what the need is out there. So that's coming up in hour 2 of today's show. One quick last thing on my mention of that viral TikTok project, a young woman hoping to expose religious organizations for not helping her when she calls with a fabricated request for baby formula. A listener says, back to your point, Jason, you don't know who's answering the phone. At my local religious organization, it could literally be the 16-year-old kid that's helping us in the afternoons. I don't think we should judge religious organizations on one phone call. That's a great point. Check it out, though. A link to the project in the background on our Facebook page. In hour 2, right